Hello there, welcome to an INFJ ramble. Somebody left a comment on one of my videos, and they asked, how do you become nicer to yourself? I thought that was a very interesting question. How do you become nicer to yourself, especially if you are a highly critical INFJ person? So for most of my life, I have been highly critical of myself, almost to the point of abuse. I've always been inclined towards perfectionism, refining things, making things better, looking for things that need to be improved. I've been inclined towards that. It's almost like it's a part of my makeup. It's a part of my wiring. In fact, growing up as a child, I didn't have to really be disciplined because I was already disciplining myself. Isn't that a gift? We're disciplining ourselves from the beginning. Highly independent, highly, inclined to just be better, to not cause too much problems, to always be of service to the things and the people around us. What a gift, what a blessing. I've been like that for most of my life, and I'm gonna be honest, like, getting to where I am now was not easy, and I'm not trying to play a victim or try to get you to feel sorry for me. I'm sure we all have our own personal traumas and stories that we had to undergo. But how did I learn to be nicer to myself? I got tired. That's how I learned to become nicer to myself. I became exhausted. When I say exhausted, many sessions of depression, many since I was a child, very depressed, isolated myself a lot, still do to some extent, but the isolation is, I want to say, welcomed now, more so. When I was younger, I didn't like the isolation. I felt ostracized, I felt alone, I felt misunderstood most of the time. But now I actually enjoy solitude and isolation for a certain period of time. After that, I get back out there and I socialize and I interact and I exchange and intake information that I can touch in this world, whether it be through people or experiences or just experimentation, I suppose. Yeah, but I've always been my own worst critic. Let me give you an example. So when I was in school, I want to say that I was pretty intelligent. In school, I was intelligent. Like I was really hard on myself, and I was around a lot of people who had parents who were pushing them to get really good grades. Like I'm talking like all A's, maybe a B, and I pushed myself to that level of excellence. And one day I came home and I had a D. And I came home, I was devastated, and I told my mom about it. My mom is such a treasure. Like, I think I've mentioned her in previous videos, but my mother, the supreme example of compassion and understanding and love and care. Thank God for her, because she kind of countered my self-criticism with her love and care. So I came home with a D and I was devastated, like crying even, and she just looked at me very calmly and let me, cry it out and talk it out. And she looked at me and she's like, as long as you tried your best, that's all you can do. I think that's all you can do in life is try your best, and it's okay. So those two magic words, my mother was already applying it. It fell upon deaf ears at that time because I was too busy criticizing myself because I didn't do what was expected in my head. I should have done better. I could have been better. Like, what was wrong with me? And for years, I want to say 38, 39 years, that inner dialogue played in my head. You know, like, always striving to do better, always striving to do more, always trying to be of service, always trying to do more than I should have been doing. But, you know, after years and years and years of that, your arms get tired of holding more than you can hold or more than you should have held. And your soul gets weary. Your heart gets crushed over and over again. And, I mean, I think my depression got so bad that there was a period in my life where I actually, I don't know, it took pretty much almost like 3 to 6 months off to do nothing. And that's why in my other videos I also say I am a recovering workaholic, because I was a workaholic. I was always trying to do and do and do and be and be and be and strive and strive and strive and refine and help and help and help. And I wasn't getting it back from anyone else, you know. So that's a lot for one person to try to take on. So trying to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. Maybe some of you guys are ahead of me and you learned this in your teens or your 20s or even your 30s, but it took me almost 40 years to learn that. And I got tired. So tired that, like I said, I took 3 to 6 months off of work, which was unheard of because I've always been a workaholic. But I gave myself that time to care for myself and to allow myself to rest. And during that period, you know, all these tiny shifts occurred. You know, when you stop trying to be something you're not and carry more than you can hold and do more than you should be doing, when you stop doing that, like, it's amazing how things reset themselves, and then you start realizing that what you've been participating in is very unhealthy. When I gave myself that time to care for myself, I mean, there was mornings where I just couldn't get out of bed. There was mornings where I would wake up not physically feeling sick, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually sick. Like, I felt sick. And yeah, I could move my body. My body was completely mobile, but my heart and my soul and my mind were broken. And I was exhausted, and I just needed to sleep. And I slept. I slept for a good, I want to say, for the past year and a half or so, I slept a lot. And yeah, you could say it was a distraction. It was a way to cope, but it was also something that I used to just kind of rebalance and reset everything. And once I started giving myself that time to rest and that time to care, to be kinder to myself, like I said, shifts occurred and my inner dialogue started changing. I started seeing things more clearly. I started adjusting myself. I started changing myself. I started being the change that I want to see in the world. You know, I stopped trying to control everything and everyone around me, and instead I relinquished that weight and started trusting that everything would work out as it should without me interfering in the process. So yeah, that's how I learned to be kinder to myself. I got supremely exhausted with the way I had been functioning in this world. Supremely, to the point where, like I said, there were days I just couldn't even drag myself out of bed. And I allowed that. I was okay with that. I became okay with that. At first, I was like, what's wrong with me? There's a fight. Because you've been programmed and conditioned to think and be a certain way that is not who you are. You've been trying to live up to everyone else's expectations, and you've been trying to live up to the constructs that you've seen and that you've created for yourself. And you get to a point where you're exhausted. You can't do it anymore. And you start really, really doing some deep inner work, and you start caring for yourself, being kinder to yourself, loving yourself, just allowing yourself to be, and allowing everyone else to be, and stop trying to fix everything and refine everything and stuff like that. Along with that came, like I said, like my tolerance level became very short. I remember my tolerance threshold was miles and miles and miles and miles long. I would put up with a lot of abuse. I would put up with a lot of behaviors around me and inside of me that were not very nice. But when I became exhausted, I just didn't have the energy to continue that level of tolerance. You know what I mean? Like, got to a point where if somebody was doing something that was not respectful, I would either walk away from it or I would say something. Whereas before I would just hold my tongue and just allow the action to occur, So yeah, I started my tolerance for like behavior that was abusive or insulting or condescending or anything that made me feel heavy was very low, and I refused to participate in it. And like I said, I would either leave, remove myself, or I would stand up and say something without any expectation. So like if I said something, I didn't expect someone to change or something to change, but just getting that off my chest would remove some weight, and then I would just kind of, like I said, allow the process to take its course. I wouldn't try to interfere. I wouldn't try to intervene. I would just let things be. And however it was, I retrained myself to be okay with it. Like, like everything. Like I've retrained myself. So it's almost like I said, you get so exhausted, you have no energy to do anything or participate in anything, and you just kind of allow things to be. And there's a grace in that kind of like relinquishing your tight grip on things and instead opening your hands to let it flow or come in. You know what I mean? Because I feel like for most of our lives we've been like just kind of like doing this, and it's about just kind of like opening up your hand, like releasing that grip and just allowing things to either leave or land in your hand. And I can honestly say, like, I am not as critical as I used to be. I'm more, I want to say, joyful and happy regardless of circumstances. If something's not in alignment and doesn't feel right, I don't tolerate it. I'll either, like I said, remove myself, or I will say something. I have no expectations. I don't put too many constraints on myself anymore. Like, I go where it's weird. Like for instance, today. In fact, most days, because I don't work as much and I have so many free days now, I'll just kind of like, I don't have any set plan for the day. I don't have any time constraints usually. And I just kind of flow and go where I feel I should go or flow to. Does that make sense? Yeah, like my previous video, I don't like congested spaces. So say like today I wanted a smoothie, but I went to that particular store and it was congested, so I leave. You know, like I don't stand in lines. I don't go anywhere that doesn't feel right. I don't hang out with people that don't feel right. I don't consume things that don't feel right. And I mean on a mental, emotional, spiritual, physical level. If it doesn't feel right, I don't consume it. I don't give it my attention. And it's not ignorant. It's being actively passive and also very proactive in knowing and choosing things that feel in alignment with you. I guess it's the best way to put it. I can't believe I've been talking for 16 minutes. Holy camoli. Time flies. Anyways, thank you for watching. I hope you're having a beautiful day. Blessings to one and all. Amen.